According to Dr. Verizon, it's 7 o'clock, so I'd like to open the regular council meeting of January 5th, 2021, the regular session, and we will start with the roll call.
Mr. Greeno?
Here.
Mr. Haas?
Here.
Mr. Hellman?
Here.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Here.
Mr. Palmer?
Here.
Mr. Russell?
Here.
Mr. Schindeldecker?
Here.
Mr. Slough?
Here.
Ms. Warnicki? Here. And Mr. Wobser?
Present.
Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Russell, do we have any changes? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking for acceptance to the previous city council meeting minutes. Mr. Slough.
So moved.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of accepting the previous city council meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. They are accepted. We have no add-on or replacements this evening, no proclamations, no recognition retirement resolutions. We do not have an oral communication, but John and Deb Singh wanted me to let you know that they are here representing the sanctuary city, and they're going to stay. If anybody has any comments or questions for them, just make sure that they you see them after the meeting. Yes, Deb.
Can I say that sanctuary city for the Second Amendment? So
Second
it's
Amendment.
two-way Democrat County sanctuary city that we represent.
Thank you for that clarification. Deb, where are you going?
All right.
You can come to the meeting.
Yeah. I'm sorry. We also need to approve the public hearing minutes. Mr. Slough, do I hear a motion? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Second, Mr. Palmer. All those in favor of accepting the minutes to the public hearing held on December 15th, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. All right, thank you. We have no petitions. We have no written communications. Reports of municipal officers and departments.
Officer Shareholders Disclosure Form from the Ohio Department of Commerce, Division of Liquor Control for West End Tavern 2 Incorporated, located at 506 West Main Cross Street, for D2, D2X, and D3 liquor permits. A check of the records show no criminal records for those who applied.
Mr. Slough.
I have moved no objection be filed.
Second, Mr. Wobser. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of no objection to be filed, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. No objection will be filed.
Officer Shareholders Disclosure Form from the Ohio Department of Commerce, Division of Liquor Control for J Petroleum Incorporated, located at 2451 Tiffin Avenue, Unit A in Findlay, for C1 and C2 liquor permit. A check of the record show no criminal record for those who applied.
Mr. Wobser.
Make a motion that no objection be filed.
Second, Mr. Slough. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor that no objection be filed, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. No objection will be filed.
Officer Shareholders Disclosure Form from the Ohio Department of Commerce, Division of Liquor Control for J Petroleum Incorporated, doing business as Northside Party Mart, located at 3900 Ventura Drive and Drive-Thru in Findlay, for C1, C2, and C6 or D6 liquor permit. The check of the record show no criminal record for those who apply.
Mr. Slough.
I have moved no objection be filed.
Second, Mr. Hellman. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor that no objection be filed, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. No objection will be filed.
Officer Shareholders Disclosure Form from the Ohio Department of Commerce, Division of Liquor Control for J Petroleum Incorporated, located at 1100 Trenton Avenue, for C1, C2, and D6 liquor permit. A check of the record show no criminal record for those who applied.
Mr. Slough.
Move no objection be filed.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor that no objection be filed, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. No objection will be filed.
A letter from City Engineer Thomas regarding the 2021 early projects.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed. Committee reports, we have none. Legislation.
First reading for Resolution 1, 2021, a resolution authorizing the sale of personal property which is not needed for public use or is obsolete or unfit for the use for which it was acquired by internet auction and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Slap.
I would move for adoption of resolution 001-2021.
Second, Mr. Haas. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of Resolution 1-2021, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Haas.
Aye.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
And Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted.
First reading for Resolution 2, 2021, a resolution requesting the county auditor to make tax advances during the year 2021 pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 321.34.
Mr. Slap.
Move for adoption of resolution 2.
I'm sorry, that requires 3 readings. Mr. Slough.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have moved.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Wrong one.
He's moved.
all right. Move on.
First reading for Resolution 3, 2021, a resolution approving the expenditures made by the auditor's office on the attached list of vouchers which either exceed the purchase order or were incurred without a purchase order, exceeding a statutory limit of $3,000, all in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 5705.41D.
Mr. Wilson.
Make a motion to approve resolution 003-2021.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Resolution 3-2021, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Haas.
Aye.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
And Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted. Ordinances.
First reading for ordinance 2021-1. An ordinance to make appropriations and transfers where necessary for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Findlay, Ohio during fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Russell.
First, a point of clarification, in our packet, it says, in the text, it actually says December 31, 2020, instead of 2021 for this ordinance. So just typographical, and ask that would be corrected. And then this is one that we pass on the first meeting every year. And so with that in mind, I would move that council's statutory rules be suspended and ordinance 2021-001 be given its second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Schindeldecker. All those in favor of suspending the rules, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Haas.
Aye.
The rules of council has been suspended, and the clerk will give this ordinance its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2021-1, ordinance 2020-1.
Mr. Greeno.
I move for adoption of ordinance number 2021-001.
Second, Mr. Wobser. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of ordinance 21-001, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Haas.
Aye.
And Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2021-2, an ordinance appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. First reading for ordinance 2021-
Sorry, Mr. Russell.
With a look from the auditor, it appears that 2021-002 is also something that we need to have passed tonight. And so that Jim has no more gray hairs at the end of the meeting. I would ask that, I would move that council's statutory rules be suspended and ordinance 2021-002 2021-002 be given its second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Hellman. All those in favor of suspending the rules, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
The rules have been suspended, and the clerk will give this its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2021-2, ordinance 2021-2.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Move for approval of ordinance 2021-002.
Second, Mr. Wobser. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the ordinance, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Schindeldecker?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Haas?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Ordinance 2021-002 is adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2021-3, an ordinance authorizing the service director of the city of Findlay, Ohio to advertise for bids where required and enter into a contract or contracts for construction of various projects, appropriating and transferring funds for said capital expenditures and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Russell.
Because it is to the city's financial advantage to be out to bid early, I would move that council statutory rules be suspended and ordinance 2021-003 be given its second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Greeno. All those in favor of suspending the rules, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Schindeldecker.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Haas.
Aye.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
The rules have been suspended, and the clerk will give this ordinance its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2021-3, ordinance 2021-3.
Mr. Wobson.
Make a motion to approve 2021-003.
Second, Mr. Hellman. Questions or comments or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of ordinance 2021-003, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Haas.
Aye.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
And Mr. Schindeldecker.
Aye.
Ordinance 2021-003 is adopted. Old business. New business. Ms. Mayor.
Well, happy 2021. It's great to see you all. Just a couple of quick updates. Just in case there are individuals that are watching that are not following along with the agenda, I just want to make a couple of notes. The 2021-001 is the annual budget, so that is a routine item, as well as 002 and 003 are really just kind of those routine items to start off the year. So that's why we really didn't discuss them a whole lot. Hopefully folks were able to tune into our very exciting budget hearing meetings. Thank you for all of those who participated. I think they went very well, even in the virtual format. And if you have any feedback on how that operated, please let me know, as that's something we will continue to try to use in future years, because I think that it worked really well and it was a great way to be able to share it with the community as well. If you haven't noticed, this week the mid-blocks were officially updated to the push button, so that has finally been resolved after much hair pulling and arguing between contractors, manufacturers, suppliers, etc. And I appreciate Paul's great work in getting that done at little cost to the city to get that upgraded to a more reliable system. Overall, hopefully everyone had a wonderful holiday season. We haven't seen any substantial increase in hospitalizations or cases at this point, but we've seen a minor increase. We'll continue to watch that and make sure our community's in a good spot over the coming weeks. I know everybody's anxious to get the vaccine out, get folks open and back to normal as much as possible. We still have a ways before us, so thank you all for continuing to wear your masks, social distance when possible, and be considerate in keeping in mind your current own health condition as well as those around you. So thank you for doing that. And a special shout out to the health department and the hospital and those who are working tirelessly to get the vaccine distributed. We still have a very limited supply, but I know that is getting pushed out. It's been pushed out to a number of our EMS services, physicians, first responders, so our firefighters as well as police officers have been able to access that, and we'll continue to push that out to the community for those who would love to have it. That is really, the only other item was I wanted to note that the one item related to internet auctions, again, that's a standard item. So that's not something where we have any specific item that we're putting out there. That's just a blanket letting us utilize that for any items that we would like to throughout the year. So, any questions for me?
Mr. Greeno.
Not for the minutes, this is something else.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I'm off the hook. Great to see you all. Oh, actually, I did have one other item. Mr. Russell, point of clarification. We did not figure out how to make sure that the auditor did not leave with any gray hair. It was just any additional gray hair. If we figured out how to make us all leave with no gray hair, we'd have to start charging admittance to council meetings, which isn't a bad idea, but not exactly what we're going for. So, good to see you all.
Our former mayor had no gray hair until she was done here. Mr. Green.
Yes, I'd like to schedule a water and sewer meeting, and this is going to be scheduled out quite a bit, but it's going to be for February the 4th at 5 o'clock in the conference room. And we'll be discussing the Bluebonnet and Bittersweet Sewer Project, and also Township Road 212 possible project.
I thought you said the 3rd.
That's right, your wife's birthday's the 4th.
Yeah.
It's the 3rd, you're right.
Okay. Any other new business? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Mr. Russell. Second by Mr. Schindeldecker. All those in favor of adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. We are adjourned. Not bad.
Good job, John.
I wrote down the 3rd.
I
looked right at it.
Did you sign my petition?
I had nothing going on, I hadn't been here in a while, so I figured, why not?